Okay, Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis joins me now to talk a little bit more about this. He's, as you see, still in Washington. Good to see you, Congressman. Your state is hit by more hurricanes directly than any other state. That said, this is a big one. What can you tell us about how ready Florida is?
Well, the good news is that Florida is ready. The president has been very supportive of the emergency efforts. Our governor has been way out in front of this. And then the local emergency managers, I think, have been very forward-leaning on this. It was interesting. Last year, we had Matthew scrape the state, but we had not actually been hit by a hurricane in more than 10 years. And there was a fear that you had millions of Floridians who were not Floridians when the last hurricane hit. Would they take the advice seriously? And I think many did, but we didn't get a direct hit, so we don't necessarily know who all stayed behind. But I think after having watched what happened in Harvey and the really significant devastation, I think that the citizens of South Florida, now elsewhere on the East Coast, I think they're listening to the officials, and I think that they are heeding the advice.
Well, it must have an effect. I mean, it's only human nature on your psyche to see what happened just last week with Harvey in another state and people you can relate to, because you're right about the Matthew track, and even talking to our weather center about it, this hurricane could have a similar track. We just don't know yet. But what if it doesn't? I mean, that could be something very, very serious, say, in South Florida. You start to even contemplate how catastrophic that could be?
Oh, well, I mean, it obviously, I mean, when you have very densely populated areas, you know, we had Hermine last year, but it hit a part of the state that is not very populated on the coast. So obviously the damage is real, and there were folks that needed help. When you start talking about Miami, you know, you have millions of people down in that part of the state. I think the prospects of really significant damage are that much more significant. But, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty in this thing. I think over the next 36 hours, you know, we'll get some, but I mean, it's still possible it could hit the Keys. They've been moving it east, but it's definitely possible it could hit the Keys and go west. It is possible it could just directly go and barrel into Miami, and it is possible it could turn north before it gets to Florida and stay out in the Atlantic. And obviously, we don't want it to hit any land. We want it to stay out in the Atlantic. But I mean, this is going to be, over the next 36 hours, I think, very important to watch. And as we get into the weekend, I think we'll have a better idea of whether it is going to be a direct hit or whether we'll miss it barely.
Already so dangerous in the Caribbean, as we show some of those pictures while you and I are talking, Congressman. If you'll be okay with it, just a quick question on politics. We're going to talk more about it later in the show, but I mentioned President Trump cutting that deal with the Democrats today on the debt ceiling as he makes a push for tax reform out in North Dakota. Many in his own party, though, not so happy with the deal. Your thoughts?
Look, I think that the Harvey stuff should stand on its own. This is an emergency measure. To start larding it up with either unrelated spending or the debt limit, I think is a mistake. I've never supported doing that. We passed it almost unanimously in the House because it didn't have these other things. So you're putting other things on there, but then what are you doing? You're leading to a cliff in December to do all this stuff that Congress should have been done already. You know, we just took 5 weeks to do nothing, to go on a recess. We didn't have the budget done. We didn't have the spending bills done. We didn't have the debt limit done. We could have done all of that over August into September. Then we wouldn't be facing this time crunch. But this is a time crunch of our own making. And it's very, very disappointing. I just, you know, sometimes I think until we do term limits and a balanced budget amendment, I wonder if any of this stuff's ever really going to be resolved in a positive way.
Well, a lot of conservatives, I think, feel the same way tonight. We're going to talk more about it in a little while. But in the meantime, good luck to Florida, and thank you for your thoughts tonight. We really appreciate it.